question or theme is going to be the maybes that we encounter in dog training. And I know that kind of sounds confusing a little bit, so let me explain it. So, kind of like Cindy and I were just chatting off topic, but there are a lot of things that are not certain. I mean, most of us here, actually, I'm sure all of us here would agree that force-free training methods and positive reinforcement are the way to go. There isn't a debate from the people here, So, but that's a decision that every dog owner has to make. What do I want to do with my dog? So that's kind of what I mean by maybes. So it's a really common one in the service dog world. Might be, my dog's kind of getting older, or she has health issues, or he has health issues. Maybe I should start looking at when she should retire, you know? And so that's a maybe. So that's kind of what I want tonight to be about. And because it might be somewhat loaded as far as like too many different things going on, I don't want to ask the typical 3-question like we normally do, kind of round table style. Instead, I was thinking we would have kind of an open forum floor to discuss different maybes without going too big of a detail into them. But, just the different maybes you've encountered in your life with your dogs you've had now, dogs in the past, I don't care, but different maybes you've encountered. So think of it as like the icebreaker, you're just going to suggest it. And then we will pick 2 or 3 of those that seem to be recurring and common and discuss those more. So I'm going to kind of circle back to mine and Cindy's offshoot just because that's been a maybe. For those of you just tuning in, Nick is going to get spayed tomorrow.
Neutered.
Or neutered. Yeah, sorry, migraine there. But so he's going in to get neutered tomorrow. Azul has just turned 2, and that's been kind of my maybe. Like I knew I wanted to wait till he was 2, and it isn't really causing him any issues per se. Not that I can tell. I mean, he's a typical, teenage dog, but so he's never out of sight. So I'm not worried about accidental breedings. He's not getting away. But I had always planned on doing it when he was a 2. So that's a maybe in my life right now. Maybe it's time to get it scheduled, or maybe it's just not worth it, So that's an easy one. Another very common one was discussed previously with trying to help somebody understand the concept is, as our dogs get older or if they have a medical issue. My internet is failing me. All right, I think I'm back. My internet was popping out. But so we have to decide at some point in time when it is that our dogs are ready to retire. And then, maybe we might start thinking maybe it's time, maybe it's not time, maybe I got another year, maybe I got, another 2 years, do a slow retirement, that kind of thing. So that's another maybe. Does anybody else have another example of a maybe that they've encountered?
What
I know
about
they're out there.
What about maybe when do you start working them as a service dog versus service dog in training? Whether you have all your tasks trained or not.
That's a common one I hear and see questions a lot. I'm going to start trying to type these maybes in the chat screen so we can remember them. So, go ahead. Somebody say the next one.
For me, I have a big maybe. My boyfriend's in the military, so he might be going overseas. And I think where he might be going, I might need Tofu, my puppy, ADI certified. So the big maybe is, do I want to get him ADI certified, or do I just want to leave him here and go visit?
That's a tough one.
That
Um,
could be very difficult to do because ADI, the way ADI is set up, the only way you can join is if you're a nonprofit organization and Lima, and if you're you have most of the programs that do ADI will not work with owner trainers.
There's 2 on the ADI website. One's in New Mexico and one's in Virginia that will work with owner trainers.
And it's
But
like
you
a
have to work with
6-month
them
thing.
for 6 months.
Atlas Assistance Dog is thinking about getting ADI certification, but if you do that, you have to go through it like a program,
Mhm.
and it's going to cost money and time probably.
Yep. Even if your dog's fully trained, they usually want you
Yeah.
to go through those classes.
Yeah.
That also brings up another one that's very, very similar. And like, so with some of the state registrations, I know California has an SDIT registration. Service dogs don't have to be registered, but they want SDITs in training to be registered. In order to do public access, is that right there, Cindy?
It's for the SDIT to do, so for the in training to do public access, you have to have it if you're doing, and you have to be actively training. So you have to actively be asking your dog to do stuff that you want them to do in training. Socialization is kind of a borderline thing, and it really should be the trainer or the person training the dog, not just the ultimate handler going in who's just, oh, I'm out for a walk. I'm going to stop and pick
To
up
do
some
your
fish.
grocery shopping.
What
Right.
state are y'all talking about?
California.
Yeah.
California, you have to have that state tag to legally be.
Legally, right. But you also
Right.
have to be actively
Well, you have to
training.
be actively engaged
the
in
dog.
training, but
Right.
socialization, I don't
It's
think there's any
questionable.
problem with that there. I know Carolyn was in California and she had her dog out.
Most businesses, at least around where I'm at, don't have a problem with it. But my sister puppy walked guide dog puppies in this area. So and there's several people that have service dogs. So most of the businesses are pretty friendly for actual service dogs in training, and if you can usually tell the difference, the person that actually works with the dog, getting them in the right place, sitting correctly. But the service dog, the tag lasts the working life of the dog. So if you get it as a service dog in training, you keep it through the dog as they're an adult dog. And the big thing they want to know is what your training plan is.
You would have to, if you have to have, we have to have it. And what that would mean is if you get the tag with the puppy, you get to take them. But if that county won't give it to you, you don't get to. So wouldn't it be more up to that county clerk that puts them out?
Not really. I mean, they have certain things they have to know. They want to know a training plan. So I'm like with Nick, I was owner training. It was at the very start of COVID, and we were doing this all over the phone and fax and email. And she wanted to know who my trainers were, what my training plan was. And I wasn't 100% sure who my main trainer was going to be locally. I knew I was going to end up eventually working with the program that I'm working with. But so I said, it's a multifaceted plan. And once she talked to me, she's like, oh, wow, well, I don't even have to worry. She says, we just want to make sure it's not people confusing what an ESA is with a service dog. And it's really, if you have an appropriate plan, like we're going to work on basics, we're going to work on puppy stuff and socialization and, good manners until we get to here. And then we're going to start, then we're going to take this test, and then we're going to continue doing all these other things to maintain the obedience. and we're going to start working on tasks. And, but we might start some tasks like retrieving earlier, so that's the kind of stuff they want to know. They want to know when you're going to do what, which I don't think is unreasonable. They did ask with Poe when I licensed her, when I moved back from Oregon, they did want to know, and I was working with the training program, and I had all the information they wanted. And I can't remember if they wanted a doctor's note or not. I had one. So I think I just gave them Poe's file. And so they had all of Poe's information when I licensed Nick.
Well, they have different, one thing with California that has been brought out in the group is they don't have a standard form for the state, that the different counties have different even forms that you can fill out.
That
They're
doesn't
supposed to
surprise
be
me.
somewhat standard. I looked at Fresno's versus the county of Fresno versus Clovis, and they're pretty close. The main difference is they want the same information. And the bigger problem that we're seeing is people not knowing that there's a service dog licensing, and that's not consistent county to county. And they're supposed to have the state law is that they have it. And I think that what's happened is people have not gone in, that when people go in and ask, they don't know, either they don't know how to ask for what they need, or the people on the other side of the counter don't understand what's being asked for. And here in Clovis, where I'm at, they do know about it. They do, but only one person issues the service dog license. So and I had to ask about 3 people to find it. So I think it's the hoops that you have to go through to get to the right person to issue the license. That's the issue that people
I
are
can
having.
see that being challenging.
Yeah, and I mean, like Clovis is like 50,000 people, which for California is a small town. And so there's enough employees there, but only one person at one location does they have a receiving location and an adoption location. And only one person at one location does the licensing for service dogs. So it is a little bit confusing, but once you get that down, or, once you talk to somebody that says, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so, and they're at this location on these days, it's not that big a deal. But if you have somebody new that answers the phone and you ask the same question, you may not get that answer. They'd be like, huh?
We could talk laws in states all night long, but my maybe was for the states that have optional registries, is it worth registering or not? Like Michigan is an optional. You're not required in any way, shape, or form, but they make it optional. They like you to, but they can't make it required, and they know that. So the maybe is it worth doing or not kind of thing.
It would be to me, because if you require it, I got to have the license tag to get state law to back me up. So DOJ's they're busy. They're not going to see about little mom and pop store not letting me in. But if I have the state behind me, it's a crime. You don't let me in, I'm going to file a police complaint.
Right.
To me, it would be.
To me,
So that's my thought. Although then you get the counter complaint that, well, if you have that to show, then the next person behind you that doesn't have it, the gatekeepers, not that I like that term, but they're going to refuse that next person because they don't have an ID.
Well, they legally can't, and
Legally-
that next person has the same option if they're from the state to choose that.
Right.
And they legally can't, but will that stop them?
They don't, but those states can't even ask for that state ID for service dogs. The service dogs in training they can, but you wouldn't use it to get access. The reason I would have it is because I'd want to be compliant with state law, so I would definitely be covered by it.
But Michigan doesn't cover SDIT or the in training in the registration. They're only covered full service dogs can register.
I don't
So it's
remember how
different
that
than
law,
California.
I
Yeah.
don't remember how that law is worded, but if it's worded so that you have to have it for state protection.
Nope,
I would
it's
do it.
not worded that way. It's
Now,
worded
if
as
it's not, then,
it's
then it would be a maybe, like what would you gain from it? That would be the reason I would want it, for state protection.
well, and that's kind of the thinking of, they say, well, the state, according to the state, the reason they suggest that you do it is so that, it can be on document, it can be record. And if there's an access issue, they'll say, yes, this dog's documented, but that's about it. So I
That's the way
kind of
Oregon-
like it. I would like to do it. However, all of my doctors don't want to fill out the paperwork. Like, they have no problem just writing me a letter
Are
that
you
fits the
Michigan?
normal letter, but they don't want to sign the state form that says, yes, I'm a disabled person. That's something about the state. They just don't want to sign that form. So they'll
Huh.
write the typical letter, but not sign the form. They're like, well, it doesn't do you any good. You don't have access issues anyways.
Have you looked at the form?
Yes.
And the form asks for what from the doctor?
They have to say that I'm a patient and I have a disability. That's it.
And your doctor won't sign that?
Nope.
I've
Really?
heard from a lot of doctors, like once there's an official form, they say it's a liability issue. And I've had so many different doctors too say,
Exactly. It's a
like,
state
I'm your
form.
patient, of course you qualify for this. I'd be happy to have like an hour-long phone call with a new doctor. I'm just not willing to put like,
Well, my doctor gave me a
I've
letter.
had them
right
say
off.
that like they have follow-up
Well, and
packets
they
of
will write a
paperwork and they don't
letter.
want to deal with it, or it's like a liability thing or whatever. But
The
Well,
doctors will all write a letter for housing or for anything like that that says, I qualify for a service dog, that kind of thing. They'll all write the letter. The letter's easy. It's the state form they don't want to put their name and signature on.
Can you not just use the letter?
Nope, the state won't accept it. It has to be their form. So
My state's form is weird. It literally says this means nothing legally. It just waives the registration fee for the dog. That's it.
Yeah.
yeah. See,
Well,
our counties
most-
do that anyways.
Most states and counties do that anyways. But like California, they can't, the way the California law is written, nobody's allowed to ask for the California license except basically law enforcement. So you're out walking and your dog gets attacked and you have to deal with animal control and the police. They can look at your county, they can look at your dog's license because they're going to look at both dogs' licenses and make sure everybody's up to date with licenses and rabies shots. And they would find out at that point. So if you're going to go push an issue of access, they're going to look at your license, but they can't. A business cannot stop the next person coming in with a service dog because they have a service dog and they don't have the state tag.
Well, that's because federal law says they can't.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
the way it should be. But you do have a tag that I like the fact that you have a tag that actually goes on the collar that that's hanging there, because I've had people when Nick was younger, it was and looked more puppy and we were going places and I had him labeled. I'd go in someplace and you could see the little shape of California as you're walking in. And I had people at Costco look at that, look at both his harness and his tag and see that, I don't know how much they knew about the tag, but they could see that he had what he needed to be who he was at that point in time.
Right.
Man, I wish my state would give tags. All they do is literally you have your doctor fill out the paper and then it states in big bold letters, means nothing legally, just waives the $6 fee. They don't
Jamie,
do
this-
anything else.
I just looked this law up and you shouldn't have to sign a state form. It says documentation from an appropriate healthcare or rehab professional. That doesn't even have to be a doctor. And
Nope.
it's just documentation. You could go
You
to
know,
court
and
over
you're-
The
that.
application process includes a form, and if you don't turn the form in, they won't approve the application.
But who can sign it? If
It
it's
does,
health
but
care
the
pro-
state law doesn't say that. I think you could challenge that if
I
you really
probably
wanted
could.
to.
You probably, do you have any RN
Yeah, I
friends?
would.
No, but I haven't even asked all my doctors, and I could do it if I really wanted to. But I guess I'm on that fence. Like, do I have Azul neutered now that he's 2 or not? Because like it doesn't benefit me any. I'm not having any challenging issues. Nobody ever gives me an access issue. It just doesn't happen in our area.
Yeah, I never get one, but I
And we
live for
don't-
that.
We're not really in a service dog popular area where people understand the laws either. It's just that the mom and pop stores would welcome a pet in, and the big chains are all afraid to contest anything. They won't even ask you if it is a service dog. So besides the fact that Azul is nothing but perfect when we go inside somewhere, so they all welcome him in time and time again. So
Of course he's
everybody
perfect.
loves him. They all know him. But I mean, like, honestly, there's probably 5 other service dogs in my county. We're all spread out. And then we get the occasional one that's passing through town here and there in the summer because we're a tourist area. So summertime, we have more people in the area. So maybe I see 3 random dogs passing through the area that are service dogs. So that's relatively small compared to
Well, I
lots of
have
areas.
I have 5 in my rally class.
Yeah.
Ours, you can take their facility therapy dogs in, the trainers can. So our law is just crazy now. And veterans can have comfort dogs for public access now. So my husband just retired, but they called me one time and was asking me about the law. And I said, let me tell you what, you look up Mississippi state law, you really don't need to challenge a veteran with any dog that they walk in a building with.
It's
That
going to support that
dog only
veteran.
has to come. Well, that's the way the law is written. They rewrote our law, veterans program did. And if your dog just comforts you and you're a veteran with PTSD, you get to walk in there. I've noticed that they've really backed off of asking people. Can I ask you back on that topic?
Mhm.
Are we discussing any of these topics? Because
Yes, I would like to. I don't want to get stuck just on the certification one.
well, I wanted to ask you about the neuter thing. That is something, I'm not there yet, but I'm sure I'm going to be struggling with it. I can't neuter, which I don't want to until 2 by
Right.
contract. But I remember when Carolyn's dog got 2, he wasn't giving her any problems. And actually, it's healthier not to neuter them at 2 if there's not any problems. And she decided to leave him intact. And then her dad contacted me. I think it was probably the end of last year, maybe sometime last year, but 6-8 months ago, and decided to neuter him. And of course, that was after he was a service dog, but I know that's going to be something that's going to be hard to decide when he turns 2, if I've made it that long,
Right.
because I understand they kind of get better, like they'll peak up and after about 18 months, they get better on the male stuff.
Exactly. To a point anyway.
It depends on the dog.
So there is a bunch of information in the Crazy Canine Classroom, and I know you're in that. So there I
On the
actually have,
neuter,
yep, there's a whole topic called raging hormones.
well,
And so it talks about spay and neuter
did I
both.
miss that? Tag me in there when you think about it.
Yeah,
Have you
that's
got-
actually in the Crazy Canine Classroom. So
And
all
UC
those
Davis
topics are already
Go
posted. And
back and
go
look.
read them anytime you want to.
And
Okay.
UC Davis did a study a year or 2 ago about neutering breed-specific ages.
Yeah, we
Go
got that.
earlier than that, and it's some breeds, well, like poodles are addressed male and female, and females, they don't have an age.
Yeah, they didn't even have one. I just looked that up.
Which was funny, but males were definitely 2. And my breeder told me that Nick's not going to settle down until he's 3. And I was talking to my trainer, one of my trainers the other day, and as he was sniffing and getting a little too boy friendly with one of the girls in class, that no, we probably need to just nip this in the bud now, because he's going to get worse before he gets better on that. And
Yeah.
because because he's always around females.
How old is he?
He's 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about neutering him now?
He's getting neutered tomorrow.
Okay, so he is getting neutered tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Penny's thinking about it, but
Right.
hadn't decided.
Yeah.
Well, I always planned on doing it when he was 2 or shortly thereafter, because I knew I wanted to wait till then for growth plates and everything. But like, he's pretty much past he's like any dog. There's even neutered, even my Cam, who was neutered before he came to us, can get excited if the wrong dog is around and still have some of those same tendencies. So neutering doesn't necessarily stop humping behaviors or, that kind of thing that people think it does. So if you can manage the situation and they don't practice it like any other behavior, you can see it somewhat extinguish itself, which is kind of where Azul is. He will hump, like, he's got 2 really good buddies, Maverick and Nala, that he plays with quite regularly. The 3 of each other know each other. Both of them are actually, Nala's spayed and Maverick is neutered, but so they're already fixed, and all 3 of them hump each other out of play
Yeah, mine did that,
excitement
did that
all the
playing.
time.
But
Right.
that's not.
That's
play.
normal, right?
And that's
Normal
okay,
dog
it's
behavior.
fine when they're enjoying it.
But
He's 8 and he hadn't started any of that mountain
Right.
stuff. Now River, his friend, does it. When does that start with y'all? Start having the mountain humping problems?
see, Azul started doing it really, really young. He was
What
like
a
4 or
Nick.
5 months
Oh,
old.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then
I was gonna say
Maverick
about 4
was
months was-
actually fixed really early, like by 5 months old. And he didn't start humping until he was more closer to like 8, 9 months old. So I'm sure it's very, very dog dependent as well. But
And Nick was very easy to overstimulate as a puppy. And so he would start humping Poe like crazy. And she's
What
ever so-
age?
at 4 months.
Really?
Yeah.
see,
And
that
she's
was
ever
Azul,
so
4 to
patient.
5 months old. And I thought it was going to be a really, really bad problem. But by this time, we've already practiced management. Like, basically, he does it with his friends because he runs and plays with his friends.
Yeah, and
He
that's
doesn't run and play with the average dog. He can be in a working relationship with a female. Not that we've been there with a female in heat, but he's been around other females that were not fixed in a work setting environment, and he's just fine because he doesn't get overly excited in the work environment. Could change if we ran into one in heat, obviously, but since they're not technically supposed to be out working, like, I'm not going to do a training session purposely with a female in heat. And those are the only dogs that we're getting close to in public, are the ones that we're training with. If we see a random dog, even in a pet friendly store, we avoid that dog.
Yeah, we do too.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's just common sense.
right.
Well, not with everybody.
Yeah,
believe me.
it's
They
not.
I know.
run up
But
to
for
us all the
me,
time.
we avoid the dog. And even if it is a dog running up to us, I can still control Azul to the point to where he's not going to get on top of and hump that dog,
Yeah.
So it's at the point to where the behavior is under control enough that I don't feel like he needs to be neutered for anything like that. He's always with me. He's almost always on a leash, and especially on a leash if we're around unknown dogs or in any environment that's not secured. So I don't see that as being a problem. And I guess that's why I'm on the fence with the whole discussion is there any pros? Like, I guess one of my worst fears is that he's never really known pain. And so he actually is quite resilient to the startle and anything that happens that's startling, but he's never known pain. And so will the trauma of the being neutered actually allow him to realize that pain exists in this world?
Well, the pain meds will control it. When I had Shy neutered, that wasn't the problem. The thing that you and Cindy don't have to be as concerned about is weight gain. Golden retrievers are such foodies, and they're so prone to weight gain. When you neuter a dog you're struggling with the weight on, and you have to lower the calories 30% or up the activity another 30% just to stay where you are, it makes it horribly hard.
Yeah,
And then
I didn't think
you
of
got
that one.
hypothyroidism that is higher risk in these dogs anyway, this breed. You're going to pump that up when I neuter them. Those are the two issues
Right.
that bother me about thinking about it.
Well, and that's just it. It's going to be dependent on breed for some things like that, like the thyroid. But there isn't any medical reason that says Azul will be better off if he's neutered. And there isn't any social reason to say he's better off if he's neutered. And there isn't any behavioral reason. So then my line is, what is my reasoning? Why? Just because you do it at two?
There isn't any contract.
Right. I don't have any kind of contract on it.
Like I have 2 contracts that involve neutering. The service dog contract, the service dog training contract I signed involved he has to be neutered at the time that he takes his final test.
You have to neuter him by contract?
By that program. But I also by breeding contract from the breeder. She doesn't want any, the Poodle Club of America is really staunch on anti-doodling.
Yeah, I know, and they should be.
And they should be, because so if you get a poodle with a non-breeding contract, they are adamant about having them altered. So I didn't have an issue with the service dog program that I'm working with, having them require him to be altered, because I already had a breeding contract. And I've never had a dog that I've gotten that's been papered that I haven't had a spay neuter contract on. And I don't have a problem with that. But I want to do it on my time so that I get it done, especially with the dog that's going to be, because even if they're not doing, any kind of weight bearing, or, if they're just doing a little bit of, a lot of retrieving, and, maybe you grab their harness periodically, not very often, I still think that you should give them the best you can do for their hips and their joints and
sure
their
bones.
Well,
Is your breeder contract say you have to eventually neuter him?
Yes, it said like 6 months or a year or something. And I talked to her and I said, here, this is what's going on. I want to wait till 2. And she said, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I guess a lot of breeder contracts, they all pretty much used to, but pretty sure I read mine and it just says I cannot neuter before 2, but it doesn't say I have to neuter.
And you may not have to. It depends on, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting handed glasses.
You need to read something.
Apparently.
Yeah.
The problem of having a dog with auto retrieve, they decide they want something and
they bring you something.
Oh yeah, I have a pile of stuff by the end of the night if Rainey was awake. She'll start about midnight and unload the kitchen. She'll bring it all into the bedroom.
Thankfully, when my dogs do it, it's early in the day, before noon.
I mean, so, if you want your dog to be, I think as handlers, if we want our dogs to be unaltered and work them unaltered, I don't see an issue with that. I just think that you need to be reading, if you're getting a purebred dog, you need to be reading your spay neuter contracts and agreements. And there's stuff they can do with male dogs now. I don't know. I think they probably can do it with females with different hormones, but they can give them basically a chemical castration that's reversible. And I'm sure they can do something along the lines of birth control for a female.
Well, females, I'll tell you, I went through that with Rainey and it was a horrible decision because it's not like neuter. There's pros and cons on both sides. When you're not breeding a female, every heat raises that risk of pyometra. It's horribly scary. And I was in tears all day the day I did it. It's a really, really tough decision.
Yeah, and
For
he's
girls.
not easy to deal with.
Well, and that's something else we were talking about with another client that has a female, because the female cycle is so different that they literally have their hormones are kind of only neutral for a short period of time before they
Yeah,
start
real
going up and
short
down. So they
period.
have, 2.5 to a 3 month period where their hormones are not in their normal even state. So when those hormones mix with the already crazy adolescent brain, you're just increasing chances of possible reactivity, resource guarding, all these other issues by dealing with recurring heats through that adolescent stage.
I didn't
female.
have any problems with that with Rainey, but she is a
Yeah.
really remarkably wonderful temperament dog. What we ran into that upset my husband so much was after the second heat, it was driving Shy, my neutered service dog, out of his mind. And Bart finally said, I'll make the decision for you this time. We're not having another heat because it's not fair to him. I mean, drove him crazy, and he's neutered.
Right.
So they smell it.
They
and
still smell it.
That the hormones you're talking about, I think they do affect other dogs. And I think that my dog could have an effect on other male working dogs in public. Probably. I would agree with that.
Well, and that's kind of what I wonder with Azul right now, is because it's very obvious that dogs are between 2 to 4 years old, especially male dogs that are between 2 to 4 years old, are more nervous around Azul than when they are around other dogs. Whether that's because he's not neutered or whether that's because Azul carries himself like he is a very, very confident dog. And I think even if he were neutered, he would carry himself very confidently, which is off-putting to a lot of other males. Now, older males don't really have a problem with that because they just see him as a young hyper puppy kind of thing still.
Well,
is it
neutered boys? Are they neutered boys that don't like him?
It doesn't seem to matter.
It always
matter if
is
they're
the dog
neutered or
part.
intact. Any boys that are between 2 to 5 years old don't seem to like Azul.
Really? Now, I would understand that if they were neutered, because a lot of the neutered boys don't like the intact ones. But yeah. Well, I like him.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he's got friends. I have a lot of dog training clients, so it's not like he doesn't play with enough friends. But I'm not about to turn him loose in a dog park when I don't know the other dogs there, knowing that he's just going to terrify the other dogs and they're going to do something to cause problems because they're scared of him, So it's kind of that pro con kind of thing. I had thought, well, maybe it might affect other dogs in a working environment, but if our goal is to always steer clear of other dogs in a working environment, he doesn't really impact that either.
Yeah, I steer clear of him.
All right, Penny, can I change the subject?
Yes, please.
Add
another maybe to the list?
Pardon me?
You want to add another maybe to the list?
Yeah, I was going to add a maybe to the list.
Okay.
Emma had a question. Does California require everyone to have a service dog service? So no, it's licensed. So she wanted to know if you're visiting from out of state, if you have to have a service dog license to come into state. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't want to overtake the conversation, but I might go for a visit. I used to live there, or
we want to.
I'm here. I might spend the summers there.
So if you're visiting from California, or if you're visiting to California and your legal residence is in another state, then no, you're not going to have to license your dog in California just for the duration of your visit.
Okay. What if it's like a blurred line though, if you're going to be there for 2 to 3 months and you're not sure?
Where's
you're debating whether to move back. Is there anything I need to worry? I haven't
Where's
had
your mailing address and your driver's license?
Well, they can't.
My driver's license for that anyway. Florida, and my mailing address would change when I went there.
And it's not required for service dogs. It's required for service dogs in training.
They can't even ask for it.
He would be in training though.
Yeah, but if the dog's in training from out of state, they wouldn't have access from
The
my understanding of the law, would
The
they?
way the law's written,
question.
it's for service dogs in training in California that are licensed in California. I don't know if guide dogs they ship their dogs all over the place. They ship their puppies back and forth between California, Oregon, Arizona, and Colorado, I think. I forgot how many places they go, but they have puppies all over the West Coast. And they don't all necessarily have a California license, but they may spend time in California. They may spend time in another state. So I
Okay.
can't imagine that, well, let's just say they have an 80% success rate and they place 500 puppies. I can't imagine every single one of those puppies being licensed in San Rafael and having a California service dog license.
They can real easy though. Programs just go pick up tags.
Yeah, they
don't
probably have
do
their
it
own
like we do.
stash,
Yeah.
as opposed to Nick, who's number 22, and Poe is number 20 in my city. So, but if you're not sure and you haven't changed your driver's license, they're probably not going to give you too hard of a time, and the businesses can't ask for it.
Okay. Is it the kind of thing where if no one's complaining or you leave if someone complains, it's fine?
Don't ask, don't tell, leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I think the
probably
issue
fine with me.
that might arise is if your service dog in training gets attacked. And California, I think, has a law that protects them.
It has criminal
think-
law.
Yeah, I think
you
that
gotta
it
have the
won't be
tag.
protected without the tag.
But if you have a tag from out of state, from your state, if your driver's license is, say, Michigan, and you have a tag and you're compliant with Michigan state law,
I don't think you legally have access in California if you don't have the California tag. That
With
Maine
the
doesn't
service
if
give
dog
they
out
end
training.
up in a courthouse over it, but I don't think anybody's going to ask you personally.
yeah, and if animal control, at least in my town, is extremely strict, because we've had a huge problem with dog fighting. So
They want
dog-
to see you have your county license and rabies. That's it. They don't care
that's
about
what they
anything
really
else.
want to know about. And if you don't have those, and your dog, if your dog's on a leash and your dog's doing everything it's supposed to be doing as a service dog in training, they're not going to fight you too much on the fact of whether it's a service dog in training, unless it aggressively goes after another dog.
So
But-
I don't want to end up. Go ahead. I don't want to cut it short.
Oh no, I just said that
All
that
right.
won't happen.
Okay.
Can I add maybe
A
if I'm
maybe?
okay
Yep.
with time? I've been erring on the side of caution, but I think you pointed this out on your post, but kind of questioning day by day if my dog can do more. He is in training. If he can do more training and I can push him harder, or if I should draw back. And I've been trying to play it very safe because I figure I'd much rather have him have like a successful outing than have something that
That's
I just
actually a
want them to be
common one
successful.
too. It really is. Just before we dive into that, because I think that I'm going to roll two in together for the next conversation. Does anybody else have another maybe on here or that they want to add? If you want to see the list, it's in the chat box. So you can open your chat window if you're on a computer easy enough. You can do it from a phone. It's just more challenging. So it's the chat in Zoom.
I do have a question. I don't know if it's on topic, but in my state, only reason I got tofu a thing that says in training, it says you have to be with a specially trained animal trainer, but it's only under the white cane law. And then if you go to the regular service dog law, it doesn't mention anything about service dogs in training.
What state?
Maine.
Michigan law is very.
I don't think
confusing
Maine
like
has
that.
I don't think Maine has service dogs in training that you can have access with them. I think I just looked that up, but I will look.
It's under the white cane law only, but someone said that means I could with a trainer, but I'm like, I don't know. I know my trainer is going to be taking us out in public, so she said we had to have something that identified the dog and stuff like that. So I got him a harness. But I don't know if that means like, does it mean the trainer, it has to be a certified trainer?
That's if your state has certified trainers. For the longest, it's still on the books. California supposedly has a guide dog training license, but my service dog trainer is used to be a guide dog trainer. She used to work for Guide Dogs for the Blind, and she had a California guide dog trainer's license. And they've pretty much done away with it because I think it was pushed by Guide Dogs for the Blind and it basically didn't do anything. And so your state would have to define what a certified trainer is.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because
California
that's what
vary.
they say. Don't they say approved trainer, but they have no definition of that. And I think everybody sort of looks at it like we're approved to do owner training. And since they didn't say what it was, our state law says professional trainers is the way they changed it for us. This law in Maine, that is under the white cane laws, but it says specifically that they're talking about physically, mentally disabled, blind, or otherwise physically, mentally disabled. So it would be all service dogs. And they do say specially trained service dog trainer. So if you ended up in court, the judge would decide, are you a specially trained service dog trainer? And I think that you just have to look. I've got 1,000 courses. I've got some certificates. I wouldn't have any problem. I would feel comfortable going to court and saying I'm specially trained. I think that the person needs to look how they would feel in an access dispute if they felt like they were. But then again, most of us aren't really going to get into an access dispute with a service dog in training. I'm probably not. I'll go somewhere else.
Maine
Right.
is really bad for access disputes.
Maine is.
Yeah, they are. Some stores are like, hi, you're welcome in here. Other stores are like, that's not a service dog. No, you're not a veteran. You're not allowed in here. It's terrible here. And then you get a lot of here where I live specifically, it's all aggressive dogs wearing service dog vests, going in and out of the stores. It's just really bad.
Have you got anything, if you say somebody had an access denial and you wanted to go to court over it, were willing to, would you have any kind of documentation to show that you were specially trained to train service dogs?
The only stuff I have is from training Izzy, my first service dog. I videoed all of her training.
If I was thinking about doing that, I'd probably just check with a local attorney or something and just say, here's what the law says. Am I covered?
Qualified enough?
I mean, before I go to court, I'd want to find out.
Right.
I did ask my trainer, and all she told me was, well, your owner training, all you need is just something that says it's in training, and then you should be okay to go in the stores. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. And she's a service dog trainer, but I'm just like, I don't know these laws. Like, it's very confusing here.
Well, if she's a professional service dog trainer, she would have access. And I would just wonder if you wouldn't have kind of access under her. Like
she's gonna
she's
give
your
us a
trainer
little,
and you are going
badge.
into a team under her.
Yeah, she said if I go in the store by myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would be comfortable with that.
If she knows you and she's comfortable with that, then
When she told you to do it.
yeah.
Right. I would be
like
comfortable with that.
Yeah, I would too.
I have 2 places I can go to where I can get Nick signed off for flying. Either PetSmart, which sounds funny because I know a lot of people, but one of the best trainers in town is at PetSmart, and she's trained service dogs for people that are in our the OTSD group, and she's helped me a lot with Nick. And I've seen multiple service dogs that she's trained, and so I can either use her or I can use the program. And one of the reasons I'm doing a program, the main reason is I want a neutral third party. Sarah
Evaluator.
Sarah at PetSmart's my friend. She's not necessarily neutral. She's less neutral than somebody who lives in another state who evaluates my dog. So
Yeah, that's a
but-
good point too.
yeah, we had some more questions. One of the ones I wanted to bring up, I'm going to be pushy here, Penny, was
Go ahead.
reevaluating your dog, your choice of breeds, and your tasks when you when there's an issue with, and I think Ashlyn also put on here whether to retire or retrain things.
Okay.
And I kind of went through this recently with Poe, because Poe Poe's good for part of what I need. Like, she's good for giving me the visual cue I need so I don't fall over when I'm walking. But she's got hip dysplasia, and she's got a personality that's, let me think about that before she does something, even though she's food motivated. So when I found out she had hip dysplasia, I had to make a decision on what I was going to do with my dog, and I had to reevaluate what I wanted from my tasks and what would help me the most. And I just want to kind of discuss that, maybe
That's a good topic.